Coming up on Mountain News this morning, we bring you the latest on the 2020 presidential race as one prominent Democrat just entered the race. Plus, North Korea wants the U.S. to pay up. We'll tell you why they say the U.S. owes them. And this week is National Parks Week, and there's a renewed focus on maintaining the country's precious lands.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning. The time is 5:59 on this Friday morning. Let's check in with Brandon Robinson for a look at your forecast this morning. And Brandon, going to be a soggy one today.
Yep, lots of different colors and bright colors on live pinpoint Doppler radar this morning. So let's take a tour once more. If you're just getting up and just joining us, welcome. It's about 6 o'clock and we're seeing some soggy conditions across the region. We first go down toward London and Corbin there along I-75. Maybe a rumble of thunder down that way, but some heavy rain for sure going back over toward Manchester, up toward McKee and Beattyville. Also seeing some pretty good rain moving into parts of Breathitt County as well. We scoot on up toward West Liberty. They're getting ready to get another pretty good shower right now. Going back down toward the McGoffin County line, and you see up that way toward the north, Moorhead starting to get a little bit of rain possibly up that way, and down to the south, just south of Prestonsburg here in Hazard, and back out toward Buckhorn. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s this morning. They're not going to move a whole lot today. So an iced coffee type day, but again, it's going to be kind of a dreary day, so you might need a little extra to get you out the door. But think about this. It is Friday. I have the rest of the forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. Connor.
It is Friday. Thanks, Brandon. Well, President Trump wasted no time attacking the new frontrunner of the Democratic primary race. Former Vice President Joe Biden entered the crowded field yesterday. CBS's Natalie Brand is in Washington with the latest on the race for 2020.
Former Vice President Joe Biden spent his first few hours on the campaign trail grabbing pizza and greeting voters.
America's coming back like we used to be, ethical, straight. Telling the truth.
The 76-year-old officially jumped into the Democratic primary race Thursday with a video attacking President Trump for his response to the white supremacist violence in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017.
If we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, he will forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation.
The president responded on Fox News.
I've known Joe over the years. He's not the brightest light bulb in the group.
Mr. Trump also gave his thoughts on other challengers, including California Senator Kamala Harris.
I think she's got a little bit of a nasty wit.
And South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
He's not going to make it.
Biden is the frontrunner according to most early polls, though some of his opponents welcomed him to the race.
It's good for democracy. It's good for America.
I look forward to a issue-oriented campaign where we discuss the important issues facing the American people.
Sanders and Biden are the two oldest candidates running.
When you've got such a long history in office, there are going to be all sorts of things that come up that are potentially problematic.
For Biden, who spent decades in the Senate, that includes his handling of Anita Hill's harassment accusations against now Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Biden reached out to her recently, but Hill told the New York Times she did not characterize his words as an apology. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
It's Biden's third campaign for the presidency. And President Donald Trump is interested in potentially making a joint nuclear deal with China and Russia. Multiple White House officials tell CNN the administration is conducting intense interagency talks to come up with options for such a deal. It would likely build off the New START treaty, a nuclear pact which expires in 2021, but could be extended for up to 5 years if both sides agree. $2 million North Korea wants the U.S. to pay up. They say the U.S. owes them for the medical care of an American student who fell into a coma while in North Korean custody. Sources tell CNN the North Koreans insisted that the U.S. sign a pledge to pay the bill before they released the 22-year-old from their custody in 2017.
In the end, it was a lot of back and forth on that type of arguments I made. Their argument was that he was a criminal, and that, why would they let out a criminal for no particular reason? I told them then he was sick. He needed to be taken care of by his parents.
The man who was sentenced to jail for tearing down a propaganda poster in his hotel died from brain damage shortly after he was brought back to Ohio. The U.S. has not yet paid that bill, but the North Koreans could use it as leverage in future talks. And more than 800 exhibitors put the finishing touches before the opening day of the NRA's 2019 annual meeting in Indianapolis. The NRA is back in Indianapolis for the first time in 5 years. Indiana State Police report there are 890,000 active gun licenses in Indiana. That means 13% of the state's population has an active license. President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence will be in town to address the NRA. And this National Park Week, there's a renewed focus on maintaining the country's precious lands. Bipartisan lawmakers are pushing for a bill that would begin confronting $12 billion in overdue maintenance projects. Washington correspondent Alana Austin reports on the debate over the best way to handle these urgent needs.
This is one of those areas where it should be a no-brainer.
Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner wants to begin tackling billions of dollars in overdue maintenance at national parks. That includes delayed repairs to roads, bridges, trails, and rest stops.
Every year that we kick the can, the parks become less usable. Long-term costs continue to grow up.
Warner says Virginia's tourism industry counts on maintaining historical sites and treasured places like the Shenandoah National Forest.
It's also making sure that we preserve our history and our legacy for our kids and our grandkids.
Warner is backing the Restore Our Parks Act. The bipartisan bill would draw largely on existing funds to reduce at least half of the backlogged maintenance projects. The bill fell short late last year, but Republican Senator Lamar Alexander sees promise this time around.
It has a very good chance of passing this year.
But critics say this bill is targeting the wrong problem. Chris Edwards at the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank, thinks some parks should consider raising their admission fees to offset maintenance costs. He also thinks that some of the less prominent parks could be run by state and private groups.
The National Park Service has got too large and sprawling.
Edwards says the federal government overextended itself by owning more than a quarter of the land in the U.S.
And I think the proper approach is to downsize.
The bill is under review by the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. In Washington, I'm Alana Austin.
Well, Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin made headlines once again. Speaking at a Rotary Club meeting, the governor appeared to connect the accidental shooting of a 7-year-old girl to last March's sick out protests. The Louisville girl was shot by her 11-year-old brother, who somehow got a hold of an unsecured gun. Jefferson County schools were out that day due to a sick out. Last year, Bevin asserted that a child left home alone during a teacher's sick out had been sexually assaulted somewhere in Kentucky. He later apologized. And Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes visited elementary schools yesterday to recognize winners of her office's annual voter awareness slogan contest. Ross Point Elementary 8th grader Connor David Blevins won 3rd place for his slogan. Duff Allen Central 6th grader Brock Horn won 2nd place. During her visit to Duff Allen Central, Grimes did an activity to explain voter turnout, stressing the importance for students in Kentucky to use their voices.
We are inspired each and every day by kids just like Brock Horn, who are telling adults why they need to participate in this process, why we need to increase the participation, especially in our elections that are occurring coming up in May and in November.
The slogan that won Horn a $600 prize: educate, participate, legislate. Make it count, rock the vote. The 2019 Prescription Drug Abuse and Heroin Summit is in the books. Before they ended, they held another summit to talk about marijuana. WYMT's Will Puckett attended the all-day session and has more from the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta.
They compare it to big tobacco of the old days. That is where marijuana is heading right now. But it has expanded over the years to become almost 99% THC levels. There is medical purpose possibly for marijuana, but the commercialization we're seeing today is frightening for many. Marijuana, it can have a purpose.
There are medicinal components of marijuana that you can get medications from a pharmacy.
But there are other aspects of marijuana that are becoming increasingly dangerous to our youngest generations.
The biggest effect of today's marijuana on kids is changes to their brain. And by the way, that isn't without saying that changes to the lungs aren't important or heart isn't important also, because those are very important. But I'm most concerned about what happens with mental health.
Marijuana. It's tricky. It registers differently from the effects of drinking. There are studies that show those who are high and are driving are just as dangerous as those who drink and get behind the wheel.
THC is fat soluble. So it leaves your blood very quickly and it sticks to your brain.
Regulation, that could most likely be the key. But so far, it has not been done.
No state has done it so far. And the nature of the industry is that it's extremely difficult to do so, if at all possible. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe theoretically it's possible, but it hasn't happened yet if we look at the states that have legalized.
But education, like what Sam is doing, many hope it will lead to wholesale changes in how we see and treat marijuana. So they say it's not about mass incarceration, but also the commercialization that we're seeing, again, is frightening. It's about finding that happy medium that could lead to possible medicinal purposes for marijuana. But right now, there's a lot to find out. In Atlanta, Will Puckett, WYMT Mountain News.
To learn more about Sam, just head on over to our website, WYMT.com, and look for this story. Next Year Summit will be held in Nashville for the first time.
Well, the forecast this morning pretty soggy across a big chunk of the area, especially down toward Jackson County, McKee. You look at the time lapse for the last few hours, and the rain continues to fall. It's been falling all night, off and on, and throughout the morning here, and we're going to see more of that today. UVA-wise, a break in the action over that way this morning, and we're going to see more rain move through. Last 6 hours, it's been kind of congealing into a big line there out toward I-75 and pushing eastward after being kind of scattered in the overnight hours. You can see that again on live pinpoint Doppler radar from Moorhead all the way down to Middlesboro this morning, and even into East Tennessee, all that pushing to the east as we head through the morning hours. Temperatures this morning in the upper 50s and low 60s. They're not going to move a whole lot today. The cool spot in the region wise at 55. The warm spot, Prestonsburg at 64. Wind cranking too out of the south there, going toward the north and east. So again, just be aware of that as you head through the first part of your day. 12-hour planner, temperatures again not going to move too much, and then we'll see those chances for rain start to diminish as we head deeper into the forecast. Connor?
All right, thanks for joining Mountain News this morning. More news is on the way.